Hi, Robin. We're live.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm great. And it's a beautiful day, and we're both here in sunny Southern California.
Yes, it
And
is beautiful.
Robin is the founder of Violet Botanical Skin. And I'm super excited to chat with her today about her brand and her products. And of course, we're both in the Century City CBC location. We could talk more about that. But anyway, welcome, Robin. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah. So I think we're going to start with a little bit of a from the beginning because people always want to know what made us do this because we're crazy, right? Like to launch a brand,
Exactly.
you have to be a little nuts. It's hard. So yeah, people are always asking me like, why did you do this? So let's start with that. And I think then we'll get into your products and some of the other fun stuff.
Okay, well, the why is yes, it's that mama bear fierceness because,
I love that.
I was being a first time new mom. My son broke out with this rash. And so, all, parents, any parents out there, especially with that first one, you think, what did I do wrong? You blame
Oh,
yourself, like
totally.
I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And so, but we took him to the pediatrician and come to find out our son has eczema. And so, the steroid creams they were talking about and some of the over-the-counter stuff just was filled with petrochemicals, the over-the-counter stuff. I saw some of the steroid creams. And when I was reading about all of the side effects of the steroid creams, I was like, there's got to be a better way. That's not for, because my family, we are clean, we eat clean, we live clean. And so I'm like, that's not an option. I have to find something else. And, growing up, fortunate to have my grandparents for a long time. They are from the Southeast. So they really, back in those, they lived off of the land. It's like, get a
Yeah.
plant, get an herb. We're going to, it's like your arm had to be falling out of the socket and blood gushing out before you went to the doctor, the hospital. They just went out in the garden, in the yard, and they got an herb. And I thought, you know what? Let me look for something natural because it didn't always smell good. It always didn't taste good. But by golly, grandma knew because it worked.
Yeah, it
It
worked.
worked. And I just channeled that. I channeled that. And I thought, I have to find a better solution because the options, and like I said, the side effects of the steroid creams and everything was just, it's even worse than the eczema itself. So that's why I started.
Okay, that's fascinating on many levels because you're right. Like we've gotten into this I don't know, like modern day self-care involves going to the store and buying whatever's there, right? Like we've lost that art of having this learning and this knowledge passed down to be able to kind of heal ourselves. And so, unfortunately, as you're pointing out, most of the products in the mass market have toxic ingredients.
Exactly. And when you think about it, I look at you know how they say, eat the orange instead of drinking the orange juice from the carton, you're
Yes,
going to get more benefit from it. And when you think about a lot of the man-made synthetic ingredients that are on the market, well, they are a replica of what is in nature, right? They're
right.
trying to
Yeah.
replicate it. So it's like, why take an alternative
Yeah.
when I can get the real
Yeah,
thing?
why take a substitute? You're right. That makes just so much sense logically. That's amazing. So, okay. So you started investigating and did you start formulating yourself? Like, how did you figure that out?
I started formulating myself because, like I said, I saw my grandmother. She would tell my grandfather to go in the yard and get something, and she'd be in the kitchen whipping up stuff. And so I started myself in the kitchen, and I just started doing research and then looking at ingredients. I mean, unfortunately, my grandparents aren't here anymore, and so But my mother-in-law is still around and she's older and she would make a lot of stuff. And I would ask her about stuff and she's like, I can't find this and that anymore like you used to, remember they used to have compounding pharmacies, right? And you
Yeah.
used to be able to go and find some of these ingredients. And she says, you can't find those
Mm.
things anymore. So I just started researching. And so my husband, one day he said to me, he said, have you ever looked at like the African ingredients? Like look at the African women, like the women there
Mm.
on the continent. Like they have weather extremes, really hot, but their skin looks great. And then that's when
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And so I started researching African herbalism, Egyptian herbalism, and then that just kind of opened up, Pandora's box. I went down.
I
I
mean,
just
that is what happens though, but that's brilliant because it's like go to the source and find, those amazing herbs and natural ingredients that are going to work. I mean, it's very similar to what we did with our hair care with our macabu powder because they've been using it in Japan for centuries.
right,
And
right.
that's
And
just yeah, but we just
yeah,
don't know it here in Western culture.
exactly. And when has the last time have you seen that's been recalled? Macabu powder has
That
been recalled.
that's a
You
really
don't
good
see.
point.
You don't see, oh, shea butter has
Yeah.
been
Yes,
recalled,
yeah, yeah,
marula oil has been, you don't see that. But you
that's
see,
a really
oh,
good point.
triclosan has been recalled. Or,
Right.
but you see those, oh, now these forever chemicals, oh, now they're recalled. And so it's like, but like you said, these things that have been used for centuries. I mean, they found some of these ingredients in the tombs of like the ancient Egyptians. They were still good. They hadn't gone bad.
I know
And it's
honey,
like,
right, is one of those where sometimes they'll find honey that's like,
oh yeah, honey does not go bad at all. Yeah,
right.
they found shea butter in Cleopatra's tomb. And it's so weird because the whole history behind that is like when they put all those things in the tombs, is that they feel that in their afterlife, they
Yeah,
will
they're
be
gonna,
using those things. And so
right.
these, and so now archaeologists are finding these things and they're not spoiled, they're not moldy.
Mhm.
And so talk about a longitudinal study. That is about the best
Wow.
longitudinal
Yeah,
study you
yeah.
can get.
That's fascinating. You're right about that though. It's like, and there's, I mean, how have we lost that knowledge though? That's where I'm kind of like, wow, that's really crazy.
You know what? And not to get too political or capitalist about this, but it all started actually with Rockefeller.
Hmm.
Rockefeller had his oil, right? And so the
Yeah.
gunk that was on the drilling machines, like, what can I do with this? I'm paying to dispose of this. Oh, let me figure
Ah.
out a way. Let me clean it, deodorize it, and whatever. Add some mineral oil to it. Oh, and let me sell it now. And now you have petroleum jelly. So then once he did that, then he went around to the medical school. The medical schools were teaching what is now called alternative medicine, but medical schools were teaching about plant and botanicals and stuff. So he went around and he told the schools, he said, if you teach now more, man-made synthetic chemicals and stuff, that I can use my petroleum, you'll get money. I won't shut your school down. And that's what happened to medical. So that's what and then that's when he labeled natural herbalism, that's when they labeled it alternative medicine.
Okay, that's fascinating because it really isn't alternative. It was actually the OG,
It's the
right? It
OG.
was it was OG.
Yes, and he hired this guy named Flexner. Flexner wasn't even a
It's
doctor, and he
it's
hired this guy to
he
discredit natural herbal stuff.
he was like an original lobbyist, if you think about it, in a bad way. And this is what irks me because even now, and I don't know if, politics, I don't want to get into massive thing about politics, and I don't know what your point of view is on Kennedy. And a lot of stuff he says is crazy.
Mhm.
However, one thing he said that I do agree with is like we have so much processed ingredients and processed sugar and stuff in the food here in the US that's not in Europe. And we allow it, and it's making
Mhm.
people sick and, creating these comorbidities and all sorts of issues. And that is one thing I think is true. We've let the lobbyists um for sugar, for corn, for wheat, for all these industries kind of come in and push their their
Exactly. Yeah, their agenda, you
yeah,
know.
yes, their agenda,
And their profits. Because when you think about it, so what in the United States, 13 beauty ingredients are banned, whereas
right?
in Europe it's like 1,300. And I don't understand why, if you're selling XYZ moisturizer in the States, the ingredient list can look like this. You sell that same product over in Europe and the ingredient list looks like that. I
Yeah.
mean, like, why do we allow that to happen to our people? Like, I just don't understand the decisions behind that.
Me neither, because there are companies, let's take Fruit Loops, right? They sell globally. I can't remember who their parent company is. Is it, I don't know, but
I don't remember. Yeah.
I don't know, but it could be General Mills, it could be, I don't know, but it could be Kellogg. Oh, it must be Kellogg.
Mhm.
Kellogg's Fruit Loops. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm like, that sounds like that, right. But anyway, they sell globally, yet in the US they put dye to make them really pop, the color pop. And in Europe, the dye is outlawed, so they use natural flavorings and natural
Right.
colorings. So why, yeah. But like, did anyone not think, oh, actually the European one is better? And maybe we could
Exactly.
make that one everywhere?
Exactly. And it's just the same thing with, so I don't want to mention the designer's name, but he designs clothes and skincare. And so there's an ingredient that he found, and I forgot what it was. I think it was from roses. And worked with these chemists forever and ever to pull out this one ingredient. Because rose is good for the skin, rose
Yes.
oil, it's really good for the skin.
Yeah.
And so he was like, let's pinpoint what exactly is in the rose that is good for the skin. Like, what is that one ingredient, that one constituent in there that is good for the skin? And he worked for years and he found it and he sells this skincare really expensive. But the problem with that is that, like, there are other constituents in the rose that's beneficial for your skin. So those constituents might work in tandem with that one that he found, right? And then also, depending on where that rose is grown, the conditions that rose, was it a hot season? Was it a rainy
Yes.
season? Plants adapt to their environment and they will build up um, defenses so that they can survive. So if we take that whole plant and not just extract that one constituent, well, then all of the things that plant developed so it could survive in the environment, we get that too.
Right.
And we get that. And so when we're pulling out these things, these one-off things, these
Mhm.
one constituents to try to make this one product, with it's like eating the orange or drinking the orange juice from the
Yeah.
carton. It's like you're better to eat the orange because you're going to get all the fiber, all the nutrients and everything in there.
That's a good analogy. And it reminds me of CBD and how people say, the full spectrum, right? Like
Hmm.
it's better to get the holistic benefit because that's the thing, we don't know how things work together. And the art of being a formulator like you,
Hmm.
is that when you put things together, you can really see the effects of how things mingle and work. And so let's talk more about your product specifically. So what product did you start with? So you're trying to solve eczema first, right? So
Correct. Right. So I started with my body butter. Actually, I started with my body butter here. And so I was using, I needed something that's going to moisturize the skin, right? Because there's no cure, unfortunately, for eczema as of yet.
Mhm.
There's no cure for it. So what we do is we try to relieve it. We try to cut off the symptoms. Like you try to understand, right, what causes the symptoms. We know it starts somewhere in the gut. It's an inflammation of the skin, but
Mhm.
what causes it? Stress, food, environment, all that kind of stuff can cause it. So I started with the moisturizer because people with eczema or anybody with really dry skin, you have a compromised skin barrier. Your skin barrier isn't working the way it should work. It's not at full capacity, so to say.
Yeah.
So, and then so I started there. It's like, okay, we need to keep it moisturized so it doesn't get
Yeah,
dry,
that's very
scaly.
logical. Yeah.
Right, because then it could crack, it could bleed. Trust me, I have eczema also. And so I've been there. I've been to the point where it's gotten infected, where it cracked
Uh,
and so yes. And so I started with that. I started with, okay, we need something to moisturize. So we were just using it on the spots on my son. And then I'm like, oh wow, this really, really feels soft. So I started replacing my moisturizer that I would buy, from the store, big box store,
yep.
and let's just start using it all over our body.
Mm.
So it was so funny. I went to the doctor just for my annual checkup, and I'd been going to this doctor forever. My file, this was before, they went to the computer. Like my file is like this thick. I've been going to her forever. And she's holding my file in her arm. I'm sitting there, you're in the uncomfortable paper gown or the gown. And she walks in, she stops in the door. Hasn't even touched me yet. And she says, what have you been doing to your skin? So automatically I'm thinking, she's the doctor, she's the authority. Uh-oh, I'm doing
Yeah, you're
something
like, what did
wrong.
I do wrong? That's where
What
I
did
would
I
go
do
too.
wrong?
Exactly.
And I'm paused. I'm like, well, I've been, because Miles, he has eczema and I've been making this cream. She was like, your skin looks amazing. And I was like,
Yeah,
phew.
exactly. It's like, okay, I'm not in
Yes.
trouble. So,
Yeah. And then she started telling me about a lot of her patients who have really dry skin who only bathe or shower like maybe once or twice a month because their skin is so dry. And she was like, you should sell that stuff. If you sell it, she says, I will put brochures and stuff in my office. She said, oh my God, your skin looks so good. And I was like, whoo. So I started testing it on friends and family. Like I just started sending it out. Here,
yeah.
try this, try this. And even people who didn't have eczema, they were like, wow, I noticed a difference in my skin. And people noticed the difference, like you look like you're glowing. What have you done to your skin? So I'm like, oh, I'm onto something. And then from there, it just blossomed. And that's how Violet started.
That's a great story because it really was organic the way it kind of, people responded to it and I think the key is it's great to have natural ingredients, but people want products that work. And
Exactly.
and so when you can do it where you have both, and that's a lot. I don't think I've found any products in the CBC so far that I feel like, ooh, that doesn't really work very well. The founders are so diligent about making sure that our products are high performing, so there's no trade-off in
Exactly.
performance and clean because you shouldn't have to trade that off.
You should, yeah, yeah. And then as I, went down the rabbit hole of doing research, and the strangest things, it's supposed to be a moisturizer, but you have synthetic moisturizers in there and
Yeah.
and I'm like, but it's a moisturizer. Why do you need a
Yeah, what?
synthetic moisturizer? Or, and so when you start reading the ingredients list, and then, I started breaking down like, okay, what is affecting the skin? What is irritating the skin? And just, okay, well, no, we don't need that. And started researching like, why is this in here? Why
Yeah,
is this? And it's just like, oh, it's in here like emulsify. Oh, it's just in here to keep everything together. And I'm like, okay, well, and a lot of the things that are in ingredients that will either create moisture or will keep it looking pretty in the packet. It's unnecessary. It's
right.
unnecessary. It's like, okay, just like I have a body wash, right? I have this body wash. It has buckwheat honey in it, Castile soap, castor oil.
Oh, sounds great.
So it separates because of the oil, because it has water loving properties to it, that's what soap, and then it has oil loving properties, which is the oil, but they separate.
Mm.
although there isn't any water in there, but they separate. And so, and I just tell people, just shake it.
Just
I
shake
don't
it.
want to,
Exactly. It's not a problem.
exactly, I don't want to put an emulsifier in it to keep it together because emulsifiers for people who have atopic dermatitis, eczema, dry skin, emulsifiers are irritants.
Yeah.
They're irritants to the skin. And so, and that's why I just, what is really needed and what's not.
It's so interesting, but it also is so frustrating that it's you and me and the small brands that have to do this education because you're right. So many people would look at your product if it's separated and think it went bad. And it's like, no,
Exactly.
it's not. It's actually means it's health. Actually the opposite. That's a signal that it's actually has ingredients that
Yes.
that are natural and not chemical and and so the big brands just are not incentivized to talk about any of this stuff because,
Um,
you know, they
yeah,
have all the toxic ingredients in there, so they don't want to change.
exactly. And I just tell people, you know what, think about it like oil and vinegar, right? You
Yeah,
shake it up, oil and vinegar, it's good
yes.
on your salad, you shake it up and you put it on there. And I mean, that's about
Yeah,
as natural as you can get. You take a good quality olive oil and you take a good quality vinegar, balsamic vinegar, and okay, and so what? You just have to shake it, but it's
right.
still good. And it's even with the butters, like the body butters, it's a butter. It melts like
Yes.
butter. And so I've had people say to me, "Oh, the butter melted. Did it go bad?" I'm like, "No, it's not bad. It's just put a stick of butter. You like real butter,
Exactly.
not the fake stuff, not the margarine stuff, but like put a real stick of real butter outside. It's going to melt. Put real ice cream. It's going to melt."
Well, and
Yeah.
then what people don't realize too, because I have this issue with my candle business sometimes, is when we ship and it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my products show up and there might be the top may not be as pure and smooth as it was when I shipped it because it may have melted and gotten a little soft and gotten a little, in the process of shipping banged up, it's like, no, that's because it's natural and that's what happens. Like the heat
Yes.
affects it, but it doesn't mean it's not going to burn just as beautifully, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I know. And I think because as you said, as small brands, we have to get people back to thinking. Like my neighbor across the street, she gets the delivery of the ugly vegetables, right?
Oh yeah,
But and I saw this report that said that the apples, like 'cause we eat a lot of apples in my house. And so, but they
good,
said like the apples that actually look ugly and they don't look shiny, those are actually the best
better.
apples,
Yeah.
but stores won't take those because they don't look pretty. We're so everything, I mean, everything is aesthetic. And I understand when you go to a restaurant, you want the plate to look nice and
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing. But in the supermarket, if the apple isn't shiny and and if it might be dull, I always look for the dullest apples because I know it doesn't have all that
The
coating and stuff
coating.
on it.
I know.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for that, and it's unfortunate that, as they say, like the ugly fruit or the ugly vegetables don't get sold because we're just so into like aesthetics with everything. It's like, but that ugly fruit and that ugly vegetable actually is better for you than the pretty one.
I hear you. It is frustrating, but it's so inspiring also to hear that you are doing all this and you're figuring things out and you're making beautiful products. So let's talk about what your product line consists of. So you've got your body butter, which you shared,
Yes. And I have the body
the
wash.
body
I
wash.
also have a marula oil.
And your
And
packaging's beautiful too, by the way. I just because it's
oh,
also just for you, anyone who can't, you're looking at it, but when you
yeah.
feel it, like the weight of the packaging in your hand, it feels quality and substance, and it's a glass bottle, so it's recyclable.
Yes, and it's made with depending on the size, like there are different sizes. So depending
Yeah.
on the size, it's like 40 to 50% post-consumer glass.
That's
So it's
amazing.
recycled glass and then it's recyclable. And I even on the website, I even show you how when you're done with these different jars, you take the lids off, you hand wash them. You can either refill them or I've used them as a bud vase, like when you're having a
Yeah,
backyard
that's a great
picnic or something,
idea.
you put them on the table and then put fresh little,
Yeah,
clippings in there. And so, but the marula oil actually is an upcycled ingredient because so marula oil comes from the marula fruit and it looks like a mango, but
okay.
it's a stone fruit. So think of like our peach nectarine, right? It has a stone, but inside of there are like two or sometimes three little pips. They're white and it's filled with oil. Yeah,
Huh.
and it's filled with oil. And so the stones, they used to either throw them away or they used to use them as cooking stones. And I don't know, one day someone opened this stone and found out that these little pips were in there and it was filled with, oil that was
Yeah.
really good for the skin. And so now instead of throwing the stones away, they open them up and now we have marula oil. So it's just, it's upcycled. I was very conscious about working with women's cooperatives
Yeah.
because, in Africa, shea butter is known as like women's gold. I mean, a lot of women make their money, collecting shea and processing shea butter. But the same thing. And so not only does it uplift that woman and her family, because unlike here in the States where public school, we pay public school through our taxes, so it's free, but really we're paying through our
Yeah.
taxes. But they have to pay for their schooling. They have to pay for the children's uniform, the books. And so it helps them with the family. And then it also helps the communities because in these rural
Yeah.
villages where a lot of these ingredients, because a lot of the ingredients I get are from Southern Africa, well, the shea butter comes from Uganda, which is Central Africa. But so it's a very rare shea butter. But the other ingredients come from Southern Africa, like Zimbabwe,
Mm.
Zambia,
Yeah.
and so Botswana. So a lot of times the younger people will leave the villages to go to the cities for work. And so these traditions are dying out. But now that there's a resurgence, and now that the natural skincare, and even in the eczema market, I was even reading, people are searching for more over-the-counter natural products that have botanical extracts and plant-based ingredients because people are now more into
Yeah.
self-care. So that's why I was very conscious about, using natural ingredients from co-ops that are going to help these women and
That's huge.
villages just having a global impact, not just here,
Yes.
but just having a global impact.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah,
That's
yes,
a great, I mean, that's just, and also to know your supply chain like that is so valuable.
yes,
And to know that it's going to communities that, and they say if you support a woman, a female entrepreneur, you're going to support 100 people around her, because the women, they give back to obviously the family and the community, but that's super important because that's a way to accelerate growth.
exactly, exactly. And and I'm in this program right now with Cornell University, and we were talking about like fundraising and funding and capital, raising capital. And so I was doing the research. And do you know women are, first of all, less risky to invest in?
Yep.
And women actually per dollar make more money or create more money per dollar than a man. I think it was per dollar that a woman has. She, I think, makes 70 cents on that dollar, whereas I think a man only makes like 30 cents on that dollar.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
and I'm
Yeah.
not here to male bash or anything, but
No,
when you're
I'm
talking
with you.
about, women giving back and women are less likely to default on loans. Men are more
Yep.
likely to default. So we're a less risky investment. Although
We
it's
get no money.
we exactly we the guys get the investment and the women we're trying and they get all the investment, and although we're a less risky opportunity to to invest.
I hear you. I know it is frustrating and it's getting, there was a couple years where it started to show some uptick in women's investments, and then I feel like we've gone backwards.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Us
exactly, exactly. So, and it's and also, just
year to it's it's gotten worse, and also you
I
oops,
can hear
can you
you.
hear
You
me?
froze a bit, but I can hear you. There we go.
Uh,
Okay,
okay, no, I'm back. I don't know, my connection was it went a
okay.
little in and out. But anyway, we've been talking for a while anyhow, so we can kind of start to wrap up. But this was great. So let's just
Yes,
finish talking about the products in your line,
right.
because I want to make sure we cover those.
Right. And then so like I said, I have the body oil, I have the body butter, and so the body butters, and I also have an eczema butter because the body butters that I have everything comes in two aromas. The Queen of Flowers, which
Mm.
is a rose, geranium, ylang ylang, and balsam of Peru. And then it comes the Egyptian, which is more of a spicier aroma, and that is myrrh, cedarwood,
Mm.
petitgrain, surfleur, and cinnamon. So it's more of
Oh,
a
okay.
spicier aroma. It's more, and they're both unisex. I've had men and women
Mm.
buy both of them. But sometimes there's a small percentage of people who have eczema where even natural stuff like essential oils, because these are organic and wild harvested essential oils, can irritate the skin. So I do have an eczema butter, and the eczema line is just, it doesn't have the essential oils. It has the same base of it. So, like I mentioned, with the body butters, it has that Nilotica shea butter, which is
Mm.
a premium shea butter that you can only get it from North Uganda and South Sudan. Those are the only two places you can get it. Most other shea butters come from West Africa, from Ghana, Burkina Faso. This shea butter was almost extinct because of the wars that were going on in Uganda and the Sudan. They were cutting the trees down for firewood because it was easier for them to sell firewood than to sell this shea butter. But then when the West, Europe particularly, because this Nilotica shea butter is is really used in high-end premium ingredients and European ingredients. Like that's the big market for using those. So it has those type of ingredients in it. It has Mafora butter in there. Mafora butter is you basically find it in Zimbabwe. Mafora butter is so healing that it's used as a base for leprosy medicine.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, yeah. So I thought,
Yeah.
this is healing for the skin. And I use oils like mangango oil and Kalahari melon seed oil, and everything I use, it's because it's healing for the skin. And then I have the body wash. The body wash now is Castile soap, it's buckwheat honey, and it's castor oil because the Castile soap is not drying, it's
Mm.
biodegradable. The buckwheat honey is naturally antibacterial, it's moisturizing, it's antibacterial. And then the castor oil, it's cleansing. So like I said, it has a water loving because the Castile soap is water loving. And then you have the oil, which is oil loving, because that's what dirt and gunk.
Yeah.
They're oils. It's oils, and so what it does is that the oils encapsulate the dirt and the gunk, and
Mm.
then the Castile soap washes it
Washes
away.
it away. Yeah.
Exactly, and then the honey brings the humectant. Like I said, it's
I love that.
antibacterial. Yeah, and then I also have a bath salt because, when
Mm.
you have eczema, it's like just soaking in mineral
Oh, yeah.
salts are just really good for the skin. And I don't have it here with me, and I also have, so the bath salts come in two different. I have the Egyptian, which is Dead Sea salt, Epsom salt, and then it's an essential oil blend in there. And then I have the Queen of Flowers, which is goat's milk, because I found out goat's milk is closest to our skin than any other milk. So it's really just moisturizing for the skin. It's relaxing. It's calming for the skin. And I know sometimes a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, colloidal oatmeal for eczema," but that doesn't work for everybody. I've heard people say, I've been in meetings and I've heard people say, "Oh, well, the oatmeal just doesn't work for me."
Yeah,
So it's just trying to find, and I always tell people, beauty isn't one size fits all.
right.
You have to find what works for your skin and what works for you. For me,
Brilliant. Such good
yeah,
advice because you're right.
yeah,
Like, not everything is going to work for everybody, but your ingredients and your thoughtfulness behind it is super inspiring because it really, you can really articulate why everything is in there.
exactly.
There's nothing in there that doesn't have a purpose. And
Exactly.
that's just a really great way to think about buying products and formulating and looking at ingredients. So if you look at an ingredient of something you're using and you don't know what half of it is and you don't know why they're there or what they do, or you can't even pronounce half of it, that's a problem. So
Exactly.
I think first step in education is like start to really look at the labels of what you're using. Anything that let's start with the easy stuff. Get rid of sulfates, get rid of parabens, get rid of phthalates.
Hmm.
And if you can eliminate those from your and petroleums, I would say.
Yeah.
But that's a good starting point. And then from there, hopefully, you can clean up your routine. But this is a great way to trade out some of your body products and try some cleaner products.
Exactly, exactly. And do it one at a time. And
Right.
also, and when you use the natural products, and my products are all oil or fat and butter basis, there isn't any water in them, is you don't have to use as much and it
Exactly.
lasts longer because the whole
Yes.
thing is they
That's
put
true
water
for
in
mine
stuff.
too. I know.
Yeah,
It's like you can get a lot more mileage out of our products because they're such high
exactly.
quality. Okay.
Exactly.
So what's next for you? Are you focused on just now kind of getting exposure for the current line? Are you working on new products? Are you working on new ideas, new partnerships? What's going on?
Well, I'm just focusing on the current line and also new partnerships. So during last year, I had taken an intensive course and training on how to secure government contracts and how because
Wow.
I'm here in LA, right? So from 2026 to 2028, we have major sporting events coming
Yeah.
up where they will need sweat. We have
Yeah.
the World Cup, the NBA All-Star Game. We have March Madness. We have the Super Bowl, and
And then
we
the
have the
Olympics.
Olympics
Yeah.
coming between 2026 and 2028.
Good point.
And right. And so I've been working on doing that as far as, okay, positioning myself to where I can be a vendor. So I am a registered vendor for the state, the county, and the city of Los Angeles.
Great.
And I'm also registered as a federal vendor. So on the federal level, I am a vendor for that. I do have a certification as a Black-owned business, as a small business. And so I'm waiting to hear back from being a woman-owned business. So just kind of getting those certifications and just trying now to network at these procurement events. And so also, and then in talks with hospitals, because where are people
Smart.
with sensitive skin?
Yeah.
In hospitals, and the VA hospital actually is one of the largest, and the one here in LA is like, I think they're like the second largest purchaser of hygiene products.
Yeah. So
So,
smart.
so that's where, so I don't want to expand the line, but really just focus on new partnerships and new areas of growth where I can
Oh, that's
offer my
brilliant.
product.
I think that's very, very smart because I think what you're doing is so great to like align with your values and where the need is. Because
Exactly.
it's so hard in beauty to just be doing digital advertising and kind of putting your brand out there and you can spend a lot without a ton of return. So that's very, very smart to be kind of focused on those healthcare systems which need it, frankly. I mean, when
Yes.
I was going through my breast cancer and they gave me like an aloe to use on my boob,
Uh-huh.
but I will tell you there's a product from the CBC that I use that was far better.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like the stuff that we do is it's performs much better. So anyway, well, this has been a great conversation. I think we could probably talk for hours,
I
but I
know,
really enjoyed
I
it. And
know,
maybe we'll do another one in a couple months and pick up
I
on
know.
where we're at with everything.
Yes, because, and then also, because your story is so phenomenal. I would love to share your story with my audience. I talk
Of
about you
course.
all the time. So I would love
Yeah,
to share your story because it's just,
anytime.
so, the cancers are on the rise. I mean, I know growing up, it used to be like someone had cancer and it was like, oh my goodness, someone grew another head. It was like,
Yeah,
what? But now it's so, and my medical advisor, she's a 16-year family oncology nurse practitioner. And she is like, I have young men, like 24, testicular cancer, and
yeah.
and it's just, it's the ingredients. And that's why, and I love what you're doing with Conscious Beauty Collective. I mean, I just love the whole concept of it and when we're, at the store at Atlas, I'm telling them this whole row right here, I'm telling
Oh
people
no, it's us.
this whole row right here is clean. You
Yeah,
can
exactly. We can at least vouch for these products. But
exactly.
bringing up Atlas, so anyone listening, I'll drop it in the comments, but you can get Robbin's products at Atlas in Century City, right next to Macy's, across from Italy, and online. So thank you so much, Robbin, and we
Thank
will
you, Lynn. It
do it
was
again.
great.
It's and I'll see
Yes.
you in person, hopefully